Minecraft 1.18 is the Caves and Cliffs Part 2 update, with Part 1 coming in 1.17, Caves and Cliffs Part 1. 1.18 was released today, so in today's video what we're going to do is take a look around the new world generation, explain kind of the new world generation, the new cave generation, the new biomes, and the new mob spawning rules. Let's hop straight into it. The first thing we need to look at today is the improved Minecraft terrain generation. Now, in front of me is an example of this, and it's pretty extensive. I've got one here, got one here. These and the previous updates of Minecraft will be fairly large mountains. These are just bumps now. The new Minecraft terrain is so extensive, and I haven't bothered finding any more of it, but there are some links in the description below for my Exploring the New Terrain videos. You can go and have a look at those for some really cool terrain features. But Mojang have completely overhauled the terrain generation of Minecraft. Mountains can now spawn much, much higher up in the world. This is just a plains biome. This is just a forest biome, but they're on top of some really tall hills. And honestly, the game now just looks so good with all this massive terrain extending up from the water level. Now, the other thing we do have to mention with the terrain generation, obviously, the mountains are here. There are plateaus. Mountains look absolutely phenomenal. Rivers have also been improved. They're much deeper now, and they exist if there's hills on either side in these channels. And that's just the Minecraft terrain generation working at its best. So you can see there's another channel there, and the river is much, much deeper. Same goes for over here and over here. It is also important to note that you can still find normal beaches, stuff like that. So over here is a much more normal beach, like that. And this is still a river biome, so it's much more extensive as well. I'm pretty sure it's a river biome, yep. This is all still a river biome, so it's much more extensive than it was before. The terrain generation isn't all that was overhauled in this update, though. As you can see here, the caves have been also overhauled along with the terrain generation. So, this is a naturally generated structure. This is a cave. More specifically, this is a cave in the biome of Dripstone caves. So caves now have dedicated biomes, they can have dedicated biomes. They can either be a dripstone... Oh, there's a dungeon here too. They can either be dripstone caves, like this one is. You can see a massive pillar of dripstone. Or they can be lush caves, which I'll show off in just a minute. Now, dripstone caves are characterized by big pillars of dripstone like this, and you can occasionally see pointed dripstone hanging off the dripstone blocks there. Now, it is also important to note that this entire cave is not a dripstone cave biome. Otherwise, you'd be able to see dripstone all the way out here. But you can see that the dripstone caves are spawning in certain areas around the world. So, I'm going to pop over to a lush cave now and show you what that looks like. As you can see here, I've popped over to a lush cave. Now, lush caves look like this. They're characterized by moss growing on the ceilings and floors, glowberries, which are these things here, hanging from the ceiling. Occasionally you'll see some vines, and azalea growing out of the floor, both flowering and just normal azalea types. The other thing is, there are these new things called drip leaves, which grow out of water pockets, which are also found in these caves. Now, these water pockets are characterized by a significant amount of clay surrounding it, as you can see in front of me. So each level of water is surrounded by clay, and the drip leaves grow in there. So there's two types of drip leaves. The ones you can stand on are the big drip leaf. If I just stand on this, you can see that it drops off. The other one is the small drip leaf. You can't stand on this, but it's a pretty good decoration block. Also, if you bone me a small drip leaf, it ends up growing into big drip leaf. Now, axolotl naturally spawn in these caves. It has to be a light level of 0, and in essentially a spot like this, where the light level is exactly 0. So axolotls will spawn in that area too. But yeah, the lush caves look really, really good. You can see there's a significant amount of clay, and just in general, they look a lot better than, for example, just the old 1.17 and pre-1.18 caves. These look really, really good. So, that's the lush caves. I'm now going to head over to a dripstone cave to show you a more extensive version of what that might look like in your world. We're now down into another cave. I've given myself night vision, as you can see, and this is essentially what a dripstone cave will look like. You can see there's the dripstone blocks in the floor and the ceiling, and then there are these pillars of pointed dripstone. There's another one over this one's much more extensive. This is a much better example of it, although it is waterlogged. So you can see that the dripstone hangs from the ceiling and from the floor,
or doesn't hang from the floor, but it grows on the floor. And then there's also dripstone that drips down from these dripstone up the top and makes these massive pillars of dripstone. Now, this is characterized by massive pillars of the actual dripstone block, like you can see here, and like we saw in the previous cave. They can be unlike the Lush Caves, dripstone caves can be waterlogged, like you see here. That's because these pointed dripstone can also be waterlogged, and just in general, it's essentially just a new cave type, a new cave biome. But they look really, really cool, and it adds a bit of variety to caving. But as you saw when I clipped through into the outside area, it's not just the cave biomes that's changed. It's the entire cave generation. There are now more cave generations than you could ever believe. And if you want to see some really cool ones, go and check out the aforementioned Exploring 1.18 terrain videos. The links are in the description down below. So you essentially have big open caves like this that I can't remember the name of, and then you have smaller ones like this, which are called spaghetti caves from what I remember. So essentially the spaghetti caves, and I think these are called cheese or Swiss cheese caves, something like that. But essentially the spaghetti caves just look like little noodles that run around the land or run around through the ground. They look pretty good, but they're very similar to the old Minecraft 1.17 and before caves. These big open caves are a bit different though. You can see that they are rather extensive. They're essentially these massive chambers that go really high, really low, and can be, they can just be massive. Where's a good one? Here's a good one. You can see down here that this cave here is pretty extensive in that this one chamber is large. It would be dark normally if I didn't have night vision on, and you can see there's a whole bunch of ores generating in it. So, it's essentially much more extensive than it was before. Now, there is one other cave type that you can only find at the surface, and it's not really a cave type. I'll see if I can find one. But it's essentially what they call a crack. And I think you have to be near a mountain for... here's one. Is this one? I think so. Nope, it's got to be open to the surface. But essentially, there are these things called cracks, which are entrances to caves. So, if I look through here... this isn't one. That's just a normal entrance. But essentially, you'll find these small little cracks in the ground that seem to go very, very deep, and those are possible entrances to caves. I can't seem to find any around here, which is really annoying. But they do exist. I explored one with my friend Melon on my. Here's one. Nope, that's just a normal cave entrance. Gah! Okay. Is this one? Yeah, this is one. All right, this here is a crack. And essentially, it's just a small opening in the ground that drops down into a cave. Now, it doesn't matter how extensive the cave system is behind it. These cracks can spawn for any cave size all over the world. Now, this one here has spawned on just one relatively small cave from what I can see. Oh, no, it does extend down further. As you can see, this crack enters into this main chamber, which can be a bit sketchy if you want to run around it. Although, this is a really nice open area, and I'd love to build something in here. But then, this cave then connects down into another crack here, which extends into this spaghetti cave, goes back up to the surface, and ends up connecting to all the other caves in this area. Now, as you can see, the caves in this update are incredibly extensive. In the old updates, you could probably find, like, that big open areas like what I'm in now were much more common and much more extensive. They don't really exist anymore. There's so many caves, there's so much to explore. Some of them are waterlogged, some of them are lava-logged. It just looks absolutely phenomenal. So, that's the new cave generation explained. But, there is something else that's going to really affect how we build in Minecraft. So, let's discuss that really quickly. We're still in the same area as before, but as you can see, there's this very distinct line here between stone and the new deep slate block. Now, deep slate was added in Minecraft 1.17, but it is far more extensive in 1.18, and that's because where this deep slate is spawning is actually below Y0, as you can see from my F3 screen. I'm at Y-34 right now. The world has been extended all the way down to Y-64, which I'm at now, and it goes all the way up to Y300 and something. I don't know exactly what. I think they added 64 blocks, so 256 plus 64 is where it goes up to. It's pretty high. Actually, it's an incredibly high world limit. I think we have 412 blocks to play with now. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere in the range of 400 blocks to play with, which means you can make some absolutely massive builds. For example, I am planning on putting together a build that goes right down to bedrock and right up to about Y300. No, not Y300. Y200. That's about 250 blocks of build. It's pretty big. There's a lot more we can do with... Before, 256 blocks was the limit. Now, we've had the doors blown wide open for building bigger and better structures. Now, if you want to put in the time for that, that's a different story. But the possibility is there now. Not only do we have this brand new terrain generation, but we have much more space to play within the world. So, that's incredibly important. But with the new terrain generation, I forgot to say this. Where did it go? I saw it for a bit. You might have seen like the stone. There was a bit of stone in the ground. Was it over here? I hope it was over here. No, okay. There was a bit of stone in the ground with some calcite running through it. Those are essentially just called veins. And you can have little veins of calcite or granite or diorite sitting in the overworld. I can't seem to find this thing again. Where did it go? Anyway, you can find veins like that all over the overworld. They sit on top of the mountains in little patches of stone with the vein running through it. So, that's all on the terrain generation. The only other thing that I've forgotten in the caves are the things called mega veins. You can essentially find mega veins of copper ore or iron ore. Now, if you're above Y0, it will be copper ore intermingled with some granite. This is granite here. And it's essentially like a really weird splattering of copper ore and granite stuck together, and you can pretty easily tell if you find one. If you're below Y0, the mega veins are going to be iron ore interspersed with tuff. I can't seem to find one right now, but they essentially spawn below Y0, and they can yield up to 3 stacks of raw iron blocks if you dig it all out with a Fortune 3 pickaxe, which I've done on my multiplayer world on Argus. So you'll see that video today. But yeah, the mega veins are a thing, so they've been added to the game. But really, that's all we've got for terrain generation, and my god, this is extensive. Terrain generation and cave generation. So let's talk about some of the more subtle changes to Minecraft 1.18. The biggest thing we should note is the changes to mob spawning rules. Now, it's currently day up on the surface, so we'll pop down here. Turns out that Mojang has changed their mob spawning rules from hostile mob spawning when light levels are less than 7 to when light levels are equal to 0. So light levels have to be 0 for mobs to spawn. Now, I can't seem to find any mobs right now, but mobs will only spawn if the light level is 0. No more of this 7 stuff. It has to be 0. This is particularly important for lighting up your base. You can pretty easily tell now where the light levels are 0 and where they are not. That makes our lives incredibly easy for lighting up our base and making our bases a bit safer, and it makes exploring caves that bit easier, because we don't have to use as many torches, we don't have to leave and come back for more torches more often. Essentially, just makes our lives a bit easier. So, that can be used in mob farms. Obviously, mob farms were most efficient when light levels were exactly 0 before 1.18, but now mob farms will only work if the light level is 0. So, if you've got a mob farm, or if you are making a mob farm, just keep that in mind. Now, this does not apply to spawners. Spawners can still spawn any mobs, or can still spawn their mobs even if the light level is greater than 0, just like in previous updates. So, that is all the changes that the new biomes. Yes, there are new biomes. So, the last thing we need to talk about is the new biomes. Here, we have what's called a stony peak. Now, there are a number of biomes, so if I just go /locate biome, you can see that there are a number of biomes here. And the new ones are Dripstone Caves, which is one of the cave biomes. You have... Nope, those are the end. The Eroded Badlands is just a renamed version of the previous Badlands. Frozen Peaks is one of them, so let's locate one of those and then teleport to it. Load in, please. Here's a frozen peak for you. It's essentially a very high bit of land, so you can see that we teleported to 169. I'm at 133 right now. This is a very high bit of land with a whole lot of snow on top of it. Now, Mojang have done a pretty good job of making sure that deserts don't spawn next to things like this. And essentially that's just to make it a bit more realistic to our world. So the stony peaks, like the first one I showed you, will spawn in warmer areas such as near deserts. These frozen peaks will spawn in what seems to be cooler environments, such as the forest or near frozen oceans. So there's a few others. There's snowy peaks, there's snow-capped peaks. There's a number, but I encourage you to go out and explore them yourselves. I'm not going to show you everything because I want you guys to explore it. Now, the other thing is there have been a number of updates that were a number of changes that were made in 1.17 that should have come with this update. For example, pretty much all of the new items were already in the game when this update came out. But Mojang wanted to put together a release that was much better on the terrain front. So they didn't want to rush the terrain release, which I actually agree with. I think that that I'd rather have a game that is much more polished and looks a whole lot better and is just much more fun to play than kind of a game that's been half thrown together and rushed to get out. So really well, I think that's a really good decision that they've made, and that I think they should definitely keep that up. Now they've made a similar decision with 1.19. We'll go over that at a later date. With the what's it called? The Deep Dark. That's coming in 1.19, the next update. But essentially, they've done a really, really good job with this terrain. I absolutely love it, especially these rivers. It's going to be so much fun exploring through massive rivers like this and finding caves. Here's a cave. Hello, cave. Yeah, the caves... Some caves spawn with these really weird square things. I don't understand them, but they look cool. Anyway, that's all I've got time for in today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I encourage you, if you've got Minecraft, download the 1.18 update. Have a play of it. Just explore the new terrain. It's a lot of fun. If you want to see me exploring some seeds personally, I did that a few months ago. I'll put the links down in the description below. And if you want to see more stuff from me, I mentioned my Argus SMP server. I play that with a friend called Melon. He and I play on that pretty much every day. And I put out a video of that every now and then. And I also have my single player survival world. So if you want to see stuff like that, hit the subscribe button. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.